To all old students, alumni, friends, join us every Sunday for a Shiur regarding the parsha Hashavua and current events, and also lessons in chinuch, how we can raise our children from the parsha. This week we will speak about the Yom Tov of Shavuot. The Yom Tov of Shavuot, we know there's the Gemara, the famous Gemara in the 9th parak of Shabbos, and over there it speaks about the whole preparation for Shavuot, the days before Shavuot, and the day of Shavuot. And it says that at that time the Jews accepted the Torah. It was Biyachat Lisai, the third month, to Amt Lisai, to a Biyom Lisai, Biyachat Lisai, and through the Lisai. Moshe Rabbeinu was one of three, and it was in the third day, the third month, and it was the day of Matan Torah. Now, Reb Nissen Gaon even continues and says many other concepts of three, which for some reason we stress the concept of three in regard to Matan Torah. As Reb Nissen Gaon says, Mishulashim, the Torah is called Emes, which Emes has to do with three. The Avos were three, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and then Moshe, he's the third, and we waited 3 months. Everything has to do with three. We must understand what is the concept of three, which is so important to us in regard to Matan Torah. Also, we have different chazalim. We have a chazal that everyone agrees. The question is if Matan Torah was Vav Sivan, a Zayin Sivan, a Hey Sivan, but Kula Alma, everyone agrees that Torah was given on Shabbos. What is the specific and the uniqueness that the Torah was given on Shabbos, that the Chazal give us stress, the Torah was given on Shabbos. We will mention another 10 different concepts and different Chazalim, and with one point we will explain everything. We also have Chazal say, B'kula Alma, everyone agrees in regard to Matan Torah that the Yom Tov of Shavuot, that you need lachem. The mitzvah of Yom Tov Shavuot need lachem. There's a argument in Chazal when sometimes it says lachem, that you have to, the Yom Tov has to be also for you, which means you are not allowed to fast on Yom Tov, and sometimes it says that you are supposed to be Lashem. So some people say Chetzi Lashem, partly for God and part for us. However, the Yom Tov of Shavuot, Hakol Moedim Atzeres to be in the Menachem. Everyone agrees that Atzeres needs Lachem. That the day of Shavuot, you also have to actually eat, and you cannot say, I am enjoying myself by fasting, and this is where from which I have hana and pleasure. It's seemingly which contrast, because Yom Tov of Shavuot is the day which we receive the Torah. The day of Torah we should be totally involved in learning and not need lachem. And we find just the opposite, that Yom Tov of Shavuot we need lachem. We will explain another few chazalim, but we will start with these three and two more different chazal, and then we will, as long as the time gives us, we will add different ideas from Chazal and explain everything with one concept. Chazal tell us, Kol Godol V'lo Yosef, that the voice of Matan Torah was an everlasting voice, V'lo Yosef, and there was no end to it. And there are different questions in Chazal. What does it mean, V'lo Yosef? There was no end to the voice of Matan Torah. So, this is, the Medrash brings this, and the Medrash in Shmos Rabbah, Sof Perek Chavches, and the Medrash says different explanations. One of the three explanations is, Shaloi Hoyer Loi Basko, there was no echo to the voice of Matan Torah. We know Hashem doesn't do a nes, He doesn't make miracles for no reason. Eina Kodesh Baruch Hu Oisa Nes L'Magona. He doesn't stam make a nes. Why did Hashem make a nes that there shouldn't be an echo? We know, on the contrary, the louder you speak, the louder the echo is. So why is there no echo? We must say that this idea there was no echo is not a nes, but this has to do with the concept of Matan Torah. We also have another Chazal. The Chazal speak about the day of Matan Torah and the reason that we go and we say tikkun, which makes up for the concept of Matan Torah, that the time of Matan Torah, what happened was that we know that the Yidden were up a whole night, and then they went to sleep beforehand. And when they went to sleep before Matan Torah, so what happens? Hashem had to wake them up and to remind them to receive the Torah. Now this is seemingly not understood because we have in the end of Psachim, we have the Iran says, he brings down that one of the reasons that we count the days of Sviras Omer, because people, they were waiting every second, every day, for the second they will receive the Torah, the end of Masechtas Psachim. The question is, if they were impatient and waiting and counting the days for them to receive the Torah, so what happened and why, when it actually came to the time of Torah, did they go to sleep? They shouldn't have gone to sleep. They should have been so anxious and to wait and receive the Torah, and we see they went to sleep. From the other side, we see that when they went to receive the Torah, what happened to them? It says in Chazal that there was a nes which happened, and there were no mosquitoes that bit them. Shinas Atzeres Areva, there was the Shina, the sleeping of the Yom Tov of Shavuot was very sweet, and there was and Hashem made a nes that they shouldn't be bitten. Now the question is, if the concept of going to sleep was something which isn't a proper thing, so then why, if it's not proper, so then why did Hashem make a nes for them? On the contrary, if they'd be bitten, they'd wake up and they'd receive the Torah. And if it is a good thing, so why do we have that? We have to have a tikkun for it, we have to make up for it, and later on, and say the tikkun later of Shavuos. So we will start with these things, and then we will explain each one, and then as the time goes, we will explain other few things. In general, we know the mitzvahs the Avos did, the mitzvahs that our Avos did, mitzvahs, the Shas Avos Reiches Hayu, Chazal tell us, the mitzvahs that the Avos did, they were like Reiches, they were just like a scent. Vanan, and us, Shemen Turak Shmecha. We receive the essence of the Torah. Now, how can it be that we receive the essence of the Torah, which is even greater than the mitzvahs that the Avos did? The Avos, we know, are greater than us. Not only that, we receive the power from the Avos, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We even have a deeper problem. Chazal tell us, and there's a Nekuda Nifla in the Rambam writes, in Parshat Mishnayos, he writes as follows. He writes that the reason we have the bris, and we make the bracha lachnisai b'brisai shel Avraham Avinu, that we say we enter him into the covenant of Avraham Avinu, is not that we do it because Avraham Avinu went and he circumcised himself. We know Avraham Avinu didn't circumcise himself beforehand. He circumcised himself only because Hashem told him, which is a reason for itself, which we will not go into. However, we do it because Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu by Matan Torah. So therefore we see, if this is the reason that Hashem, and the Rambam writes, this is the Rambam writes in Parshat Mishnayos, in Sof Perek Zayin the Chulin, and also in Sanhedrin we speak about it. The question is, we don't circumcise ourselves because he did, Beis, he circumcised himself and his household, that Hashem commanded us through Moshe Rabbeinu that we should be circumcised. Now, Hashem told Avram Avinu, he already told him to circumcise himself, and not only that, we have the uniqueness of the circumcision of Avram Avinu is this is the only mitzvah that Avram Avinu was able to have any connection with, that bris b'bsarchem, that caused kedusha in the body. Therefore, we see that Avram Avinu said, "Simna yodcha tachas sirechi," go put your hand by my bris milah, because there was a kedusha in the bris milah. So you see that Avram Avinu did have kedusha, was able to bring kedusha into the mitzvahs, into the gashmis through doing mitzvahs. Other mitzvahs we know, like we said before, mitzvah sh'avas, shasel avas, reichas hayu. Chazal tell us that all the different kedusha and all the different hashpaot, the different concepts of bringing down godliness in the world. So Avram and the others did through different spiritual acts, like Yaakov Avinu as a simple example. Through the maklos, through the staffs, he was able to bring down all the concepts we do through the putting on tefillin. However, the staff stayed a staff. It didn't become a chayfetz, an object of kedusha. Only after Matan Torah. However, by Milah, we have even more than this, that they did become a chayfetz of kedusha. So what is the uniqueness of Kabbalah Satira? The answer is, for these things and for the other and for many other things, Chazal tell us, Rabbi Yosef said, Ilav hayoymed kagorim. The Chazal tell us in Masechtas Pesachim Daf Samaches, Rabbi Yosef biyoymed atzarta, the yom, the day of Atzeres, the day of Shavuot, Amar Avdili Igla Tilsa, make me an eagle, which is a calf, 3 of 3, and he said, Amar ilav hayoymed kagorim, if it was not for this day, which caused a uniqueness, Kama Yosef Ika B'Shuke, there would be many Yosefs in the market. Now, the Rebbe speaks at length why Rabbi Yosef is the one that said it, why other Tanoim and Amoraim did not say it. However, the Rebbe goes into a very interesting point, and he says, Rabbi Yosef, he was a blind person who is pater for mitzvahs, and even he said that Kama Yosef Ika B'Shuka, because the question is if it's better if one is to mitzvah v'osa, if he was commanded and then he does a Torah mitzvahs, or he's eina mitzvah v'osa, or he does it without being commanded. There's the advantage of each one, the advantage when one is commanded to do a mitzvah. So then he does it even though he has all the trials and tribulations not to do it, because since there's the mitzvah, so there's also the lumazeh, there's also the struggle not to do Torah mitzvahs, and then he overcomes the struggle. And then there's the other concept that a person does it on his own, which we will speak about at different times, the mile of a person doing a mitzvah when he is not commanded. However, this is why Rabbi Yosef said it. But what is the uniqueness of the day of Matan Torah? The uniqueness of the day of Matan Torah is that Hashem, as Chazal say, before Matan Torah there was a gzeira, elyonim lo yarda lamata, tachtoinim lo yalu lamayla. There was this decree, elyonim, the kedusha, and the idea of godliness didn't penetrate in the world. V'tachtonim, and the physicality, lo yalu lamayla. Then we say, Vayidaber Hashem, and Hashem spoke, Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, V'ani Amaschil, V'yered Avar El Har Sinai. Hashem went down on Mount Sinai, V'ani Amaschil, and I was the one that began this concept, that through going down into the idea of Mount Sinai, then Hashem brought that Kedusha was permeated in the world. And not only we can do something, and through this Hashem gives us the power that we can take a dove of a concept and a physical object and elevate it to make it a chayfetz of Kedusha. So therefore, this is the uniqueness of Matan Torah. When we understand this, and we will elaborate on this point a little more, this means that Hashem gave a specialty in Matan Torah. The Avos and the days before the Avos, Mimei Avos, Leposke Torah Ma'aviseinu. Chazal tell us from the time of the Avos, there was never a time that they wasn't learning Torah by our Avos. We know, Ves Yehuda Shalach Lefonav, he sent Yehud in front of him, Laharis Goishna, and Chazal tell us, to make a Beis HaMedrash and the Mokum Limud, a place to learn Torah in Mitzrayim. So therefore there should constantly be the learning of Torah. The Avos, we know the Avos did Kiyum Kol Torah, that they were Mekayim all the Taryag Mitzvos, as we say, Im Lovan Garti, the Taryag Mitzvah Shamarti. So they did the Taryag Mitzvahs. So therefore it's not that they didn't do Torah Mitzvahs beforehand. They did all the Taryag Mitzvahs. However, the Taryag Mitzvahs that they did not permeate totally and change over everything to Kedusha. Therefore, Hashem made up the new thing, Vayered Avar El Har Sinai. He came down on Mount Sinai and caused that the physicality should be changed over this simple world, the lowest world, from the highest level, Min HaShamayim Yishmach Koilach, from the heaven, from the highest level, he came into this world and brought Kedusha into the world, that it should permeate in the world. Therefore, we find very interesting things in Chazal. When Hashem gave the Torah, Tzifalei Tzif, the birds didn't chirp, the whole world received the Torah. The whole world stood in awe and received the Torah. And Hashem, the Goyim said, what is it? Hashem Oz Liyamo Yiten, Hashem Yevorach Hasamei B'Shalom. Therefore, when Hashem gave the Torah, he didn't break the world. On the concept, he went and he brought peace into the world, and he caused that the world should be permeated, should be saturated with Kedusha. Therefore, there was no echo of Matan Torah. Why was no echo of Matan Torah? When is there a concept of an echo? When there is something which stops the voice and then it causes it to come back. Therefore, the louder the voice, the stronger it comes back. This is when there's something which is in contrast, which is in conflict with the voice, it doesn't let it go any further. Then it must bounce back. However, by Matan Torah, as we said, the whole world was permeated. It went into Shivim Loshen. It went to all different nations. It went and it caused that the whole world stopped and received the Torah until even the birds received the Torah. Everyone, every part of the creation was permeated and was full with the Kedusha of Matan Torah. I am your God. When Hashem said this, so he caused that the whole world now can be changed over and be elevated to Kedusha. When he did such a thing, so what happens? Then, so automatically there cannot be any echo. Because an echo is only when there's something which is in contrast, in conflict. Over here, on the contrary, the voice of Matan Torah permeated and became and went into each and every part, into the mountains and into the people, into the whole world. So there was no place which there wasn't the voice of Matan Torah. This is one reason. Therefore also we find that Chazal tell us that everyone, Kule Alma, as we mentioned before, everyone agrees that Atzeres, the Yom Tov of Atzeres, has to be Lachem. It has to be that we should eat and enjoy it. Because what is the Tachlis, what is the purpose of Matan Torah? That Kedusha, that a godliness, a likus, should permeate into the lowest level, even into our food, into our mundane things. Therefore, when it comes Matan Torah, we have to show that we are even eating, that even in the eating, there's also the mitzvah and the kedusha, and we have the power to elevate it. As we said before, I gave it, and as we know the famous saying that Hashem made from ruchnis, gashmis, and He gave us the power to make from gashmis, to make from the physicality, to elevate it and to change it over to ruchnis. Therefore, as we said before, one of the things which we began with, why the concept of Yom Shlishi, Chodesh Shlishi, the third month, Nisan, Iyar, Siva, the third month, Moshe, which he's the third, there's Kohen Levi Yisrael, again, there's everything in Judaism is three. What is the concept of three? And then from the other thing, we're going to speak about Shabbos, that everyone agrees it was given on Shabbos. And, as we said before, Hashem owes them and Hashem Yevarech Hasam V'Sholom. What is the concept of three? One is when there's Chesed. Yom Rishon is Chesed. Yom Sheni, and also we're in the days of Sfiras Omer. The first week is Sfiras HaChesed. The second week is Gvur. Gvur means no. We also find by the days of creation, first day was Bereshis Bara, Or Vahi Or. There was Bereshis Bara, Kimas Shemayim V'Soretz, and He created the whole world. Second day is Vayavdel Elokim. There was a separation, and it doesn't say Ki Tov in the second day, because second day is conflict, is Gvura, is separation. The third day is Tiferes. As we say, the third week in Sfiras Omer, which we are counting now, is Tiferes, which is the idea of the beauty of the two, which is only the harmony of everything together. When is there the beauty and harmony? When there is A and B, Osa Sholem and Reimav, there's A Shemayim, Mayim is the first day, Eish shows on Gvura, which is second day, and Hashem puts them together, and Osa Sholem and Reimav, there's something which is above the two, and which causes them, because they go to a higher level, then there's no conflict. On the contrary, they not only get along with each other, but they become one. Hashem Yevarech Es Amo, like we said before, Bashalom. Shalom means that there isn't just one, because when there's only one, there's no one to make peace with. When there's two, there's conflict. Three shows that you take the two things which seemingly, Chesed and Gvura, which seemingly are two different, and you put it together, and you becomes one, a new entity of Shalom, a new entity which is the entity of peace, which shows that there is the connection of, they become one together, unification. Just that we have this in the 3 days, also this is the concept, Hashem created the world. Before, as we said before, there was Kedusha and there was the world. There was godliness and the world. There was a separation. The idea of godliness is something which is above world. The idea of this world is the physicality. In the physicality is something which goes and does not accept. We have to fight to bring in Kedusha, to bring in holiness and godliness. Hashem, through giving the Torah, Hashem Yevarech Es Amo Basholom, through the Yidden, He gave that there's the concept of Shalom. Why through Yidden we will speak about a different time. So what he gave this concept of shalom, which means the harmony, the peace, the unification, that now world and godliness is not in contest, not in conflict. Many people, when they came over the seas or whatever, came from Europe, they thought, now America is different. We have to change because in America we have to be like the Joneses. We have to be like the American person. Because they didn't realize that, and they thought that, as there's a Chazal that say, and there's different places that seem to say that in the lower hemisphere, which some people speak about this as America, or some people South America, there was no Matan Torah. As if here's a place where there's no Kedusha, no Matan Torah. So therefore, we have to compromise with different concepts and not receive the Torah. We say no. Hashem Yevarech Hasam B'Shalom. 3 shows in harmony. 3 shows that the world and godliness are not in conflict, they're not in contrast. They are one in unison. This is what Hashem brought into the world, and this is what He gave us. Therefore, we have the power later to elevate the world also. This is the reason why we stress, as Nissan Golden says, everything has to do with 3. 3 shows that the idea of shalom. Also, Shabbos, as we know, Shabbos shows on Menucha. That Ma Olam Chaser, Chazal tell us, what was the world lacking? Menucha. But Shabbos came, Ba Menucha. Then there's the concept of peace, of rest. What is Menucha? Menucha just means that I'm taking a nap on Shabbos? No. Menucha means that I am elevated. Vayechulu Hashamayim. I go to higher level, which now the world, usually 6 days a week we work, and the 7th day we rest. But what does the rest mean? It's not just not doing work, it's the elevation. Vayechulu Kiloyon, that the world goes on a higher level on Shabbos. So then, work is not in contrast, even, which we will speak about a different time, how this concept is that you're not allowed to have borah on Shabbos. So therefore we see that there are things that you're not allowed to do, and there's work on Shabbos you're not allowed to do. But the idea of Shabbos is menucha, that there is the elevation. Therefore, Matan Torah is given on day of Shabbos. When we understand this concept, the idea of what Hashem gave us the power that He came into the world, made that the Kedusha now permeates the world, that the world and godliness, the world and spirituality are not 2 different entities, but we can have this idea totally in this world. Therefore, we understand what Rabbi Yosef said, Ilav hayom adikagorim. If it wasn't for this day, Kama Yosef ika b'shuka. Because there will be a lot of people in the marketplace, but they wouldn't be able to change the marketplace into Kedusha. B'shuka, they would stay in the marketplace. The marketplace would stay a separate entity from godliness. But the day of Matan Torah made that even in the marketplace, even in our B'chol D'Rachecha Deu, Kol Masecha Yeh L'Shem Shemayim, B'chol D'Rachecha Deu, even in the marketplace, even in the lowest thing, we should also, in our mundane things and acts, we should feel and live godliness. This is what Rabbi Yosef said. The Chiddush is, as we will speak about a different time, that the Chiddush is that even Rabbi Yosef, which he was potter for the Mitzvos, he was free from mitzvahs, he was blind, he was still, through doing the mitzvah, able to permeate Kedusha into the thing, which is why Rabbi Yosef said it, to tell us a double Chiddush. Now we will understand a few other different Chazalim, we will say in short. We know, and as we forgot to mention, so therefore, what happened by Matan Torah? The Jewish people, they were waiting for Matan Torah. They were constantly counting when the second will come. The question is, why did they go to sleep? The answer is, when they went to sleep, they thought that Matan Torah is a spiritual a concept which they will receive the Torah. And therefore, just like we have different Nevi'im, besides Moshe Rabbeinu, they had to be totally removed from their Gashmias. They were in sleep, and they were called the Meshuga Navi, and they're all different things that they were muvshat. They were totally separated and oblivious from the physicality. Same too, they thought, by going to sleep, they will receive the higher spiritual levels of Matan Torah. This is what they thought. And therefore, since they did it because of their feeling the greatness of Torah and their anticipation, which they couldn't wait for the second of receiving the Torah, and especially Moshe added another day, so they were even waiting, and they were in this, waiting every second to receive the Torah. Therefore, they went to sleep, not because they had the lack of feeling and the lack of the understanding what Torah is. They thought that they'll receive the Torah in a more spiritual and a higher level. This is what they thought, and therefore, since they had such good intentions, we said that there was a ness, and the ness was that there were no mosquito bites, because they did it not because of their lack of feeling the Torah. On the contrary, they did it because they wanted to receive the Torah in its higher level. However, what was their mistake? And why do we have to go and make a tikkun to go and fix over what they did? The idea is because they didn't realize the Torah is to come into this world and to change our world in our bodily, in our physical body. This is what the Chazal say. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know what the answer, the same concept, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know what to answer the Malachim. The Malachim said, Tnu hayit chal hashamayim. Please put your hod, your highest levels, on Shamayim. So therefore, which is, he wanted to receive the highest levels in Shamayim, that the Malachim wanted to receive it. And we said, the Moshe Rabbeinu did not know what to answer. They didn't just come with this question, they also came with a taina, as Chazal say. They came with a reason. According to Torah, we say that there's a concept of someone, if he has a field, and he wants to sell his field, and he has a neighbor which has fields all around, he has to sell to his neighbor first. Why? Because it's called bar metzger. The person who is closer, he has these fields, and he's anyways watching over the field, and so why should he give it to someone else? Give it to him, because he's rightfully more fitting to get it. So Chazal tell us in Gemara Shabbos, as we mentioned before, when Moshe went up to heaven, the Malach Yeshoras said to Hashem, what is a Yeludisha, a person who was born from a woman, what's he doing by us? He came to receive the Torah. That there is this special treasure which you put away all these times. You want to give it to a man of flesh and blood? What are you giving it to man for? Put in your hold, your highest levels, al hashamayim. Go and answer them. Tell them why you deserve to receive the Torah more. Nosenli, Maksivba, Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, Asher Tzisicha Meretz Mitzrayim. It says, I am the God which took you out of Mitzrayim. Amalei Mitzrayim Yiratem. Did you go down to Egypt? Le'parish Shabbatim. Were you slaved by Paro? Torah Mati Lamati Elachem. Why should we see the Torah? Then he said, Shuv maksiv aloy Elohim acherim, you shouldn't have other gods. Bein amim atem shuyim ayu. Between other nations, sha'ovna avodah zarah. And then he brought on the other Aseres HaDibros. Do you do malacha? Do you do masamatan? Do you do business? Av'em yesh lachem. Do you have father and mother? Kina yesh bachem, which goes on the end of the Aseres HaDibros. Yetzirah yesh Menachem. Miyad hodol HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Chazal explain what was their basis. It says in different svarim, the Rebbe brings down from the Chaskuni and from other people, they were based on this idea of Bar Mitzvah, that they are close and they deserve to get it. And the Rebbe goes into whole Sikha to explain it in depth, but we are just going to take the point. When is there a question that they deserve the Torah more, if the idea of Torah was just the ruchnius, the spirituality of Torah. But the idea of Torah was to come into this world, into the physicality. And not only that, to make the world a dir le'yizbarach tachtainim, to make this world a edifice for God, that we can bring in each and every act we do, we can make it an edifice for God. When we have this idea, this is something which is higher than the world. And this isn't so. And when someone has the house, he doesn't have to sell it to the neighbor. We are making a dir le'yizbarach to the Eibusher. And not only that, the Torah is dafka given to the world, to us in this world. What is the world? As we said before, there's a Yetzirah, there's Av'aim, there's Kina, there's envy, there's all these different concepts. We're going down to Mitzrayim. We have all these different things which are seemingly in contrast and conflict to receiving the Torah. And Hashem gave us the Torah that we are able to change over the world. This is the idea of Torah. Therefore, this is, as we said before, Ilav HaYoima, this is the world, this is the day which caused that we can change over the world. Vayered Avay al Har Sinai. This is the day that we have, that we bring the Torah down, and we bring the Torah down in a way that changes over the world and permeates the world. Therefore, what happened in the world? It was given on this day of the third day. It was a day which the voice had no echo, and it was something which all the Aseres HaDibros were said Dibur Echad. Because the second as the half of the Aseres HaDibros, which are the idea of, like we said before, kina and sina, envy and hate and everything, and the Yetzirah, even them, you cannot separate Kedusha, the lowest things, with the highest levels. Everything is connected with the power that Hashem gave us into Matan Torah. Therefore we have Atzeres, Kuliyama, Shabbos Torah. Everyone agrees that in the Atzeres you have to have Lachem. All these different concepts are because Hashem gave us the Torah. And Hashem gave us the Torah, He gave us the power that we are able to go and change over the world. Now, the Chiddush in everything is, we still have to understand one thing. Avraham Avinu, sof, he made a chayfetz of Kedusha we said, that Simna Yod Chatachas Yech, Hashem commanded him to receive the Torah. Hashem told him that as we said before, that his receiving the Torah is a bris b'bsarchem. And we said before that he was told that when he does the Torah, when he did it, as we said, this is the idea of what? He had Kedusha in the Torah. So why do we say, as we mentioned from the Rambam, the Nakuda, what's called Nakuda Nifla of the Rambam, why do we have that we don't receive the Torah? At least the idea of the bris we should have, because Avraham Avinu was given the bris. The answer is, even though Avraham Avinu was given the bris, it's still, this is not the Tachlis Hashlemus. as much as Hashem gave Avraham Avinu this concept, it's more that He gave it to him that he was able to bring some kedusha in the world. But the idea that the world becomes one, that the world and Torah are not two separate entities, that the Hashem Yevorach Hasama Basholem, that it becomes one thing, this was not able to be done. And this is why we see why all other things that the other mitzvahs were not able to do, as we will go deeper in another time in the idea of bris milah. However, this nekuda, that even by Avraham Avinu wasn't betachlis hashleimus, this is the chiddush of the Rambam. Therefore, from one thing we say, lachnise bevrisa shel Avraham Avinu, from the other thing we also make another bracha. First we say the mitzvah bris, and then we say lachnise bevrisa shel Avraham Avinu. There is the uniqueness and the koach which we see from Avraham Avinu, that he worked on himself until Hashem told him to, and he vayashkem av mabok, woke up in the morning. However, this is not the ultimate, because it didn't change over the world. That became basholem, that the physicality is not a separate entity from godliness. Hashem made it not only that there's godliness, or there's spirituality, and there's physicality, which are two different entities. He made that the world can be filled with godliness, with God. Vayered Havaya Lar Sinai, that Anoichi Hashem Elokecha Ani Ono Nafshi Ksav Yavis, the essence of Hashem came into the world and changed over the world, that the world is not another place, a place which is separate from Hashem. On the contrary, this is the true edifice. And not only that, this is all the higher worlds are even a yerida from Hashem, even the highest world where the malachim are. So Hashem had to descend from His place. Dafka, only in this physical world, where there is the Mitzrayim, where there is the physicality, where there is sinah, where there is hatred and there's envy and everything, only in this world is this the Dir Yisborach, do we make an edifice for Hashem, through Hashem giving us the koyach. He came down to Mount Sinai and gave us the koyach that we can also go, and He told us to elevate, and we can change over, make from godliness ruchnius, and we should be zoicha, we should merit that by Matan Torah we should receive Torah Chadosh Amiti Teitzei, the completion, the Torah, the new Torah which will be given by Mashiach Tzidkenu, and the completion of Torah and the completion of the world, that everything will be Mitzvos Tzidkonecha in Binyan Beis Hamikdash, the building of Beis Hamikdash, B'mher B'meinu Amen.